Monday Q&A.
Hey.
It's Monday Q&A on WebDM.
Are the other cameras on?
We're just going to do a cam.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
so we're only looking here?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Talking to the people. I'm going to sit over here.
Los Louis.
At Greedy Huffman asks, what house rules could you use to make 5th edition combat more deadly?
What house rules can you use to make 5th edition combat more deadly? I got one right off the bat.
Yeah.
You don't reset death saving throws when you get brought back.
That's a good one.
On a long rest, do they... short rest? No, long rest.
Sure, long rest.
On
I
a
can see
long
that
rest, your death saves reset.
Yeah.
So no more whack-a-mole.
No more whack-a-mole. I like the one where we've got you have exhaustion or something that happens if you've been brought to 0 and then brought back up, right? If you've been knocked unconscious, you gain a level of exhaustion.
Oh yeah.
And then if that happens 2 or 3 times in a fight, which as we all know it can, that will be incredibly difficult for the party member that has it. I've seen some house rules, and some of our immortal patrons have come up with some where it's like you have to spend your own hit dice in order to unlock the healing magic of, say, Healing Word or Cure Wounds. So it limits the number of times those abilities can be, or those spells can be used on you. Depending
now,
on
would that change? Like, you have Healing Word, that's a D4, but you're a barbarian that uses D12 hit points.
I forget what we came up with.
What about instead of a D4 plus your ability modifier, you just roll a D4 and they roll their hit point, their hit die?
It could be something like that. I think that, like, limiting healing in some way, making it less plentiful. I mean, healing's all over the place. It's not just like Cure Wounds and Healing Word. There's all the things the paladins get. Of course, there's a lot of classes that have access to those healing spells. It's not just clerics anymore. And so I think making it more deadly. One of the things that I've toyed with is just changing how when and where you can take a long rest or a short rest. I've seen a lot of times where the dungeon masters and groups have this idea that you can just rest anywhere you want and be completely fine with it. And I I can see why groups do that. They don't want to mess with having potential for like 8 random encounters for a long rest, but like just saying like no to resting in the dungeon. And even if they use something like Tiny Hut or Magnificent Mansion, there are ways around those things. Those are spells that can be dispelled. Those are spells that the enemy can prepare for. If you're camping out in a tiny hut in the dungeon, your enemies find you, why aren't they burying you alive? So that whenever that spell ends, you're crushed by the weight of rocks that fall after the force effect ends. Why aren't
they set up an insane ambush?
Insane ambush, tunnel underneath you, fill the area that you're in with water or something. There's a lot of different ways. They know where you're at, and will take measures accordingly. But so, like, limiting the number of places that you can take a long rest is one, or just frankly saying, like, yeah, you need to be in a bed with a nice meal and whatnot in order to benefit from a long rest. Like, it doesn't matter how, unless you're busting out a Magnificent Mansion, which at that point, that's what, 7th level spell, something like that. Yeah, at that point you're having different kinds of adventures than you were at low level.
Right.
I know that this is one that frequently comes up, but I do think some combination of, like I said, making being knocked to 0 more painful than just like you get 1 hit point, you're back up, now your death saves repeat.
Yeah.
As well as making healing less plentiful and making it harder to recover from a rest are all going to do that. You can also just say, like, yeah, you can take a long rest, but it doesn't automatically refill all your hit points. And you can have a slower rate of healing if you want.